कल्याणं धनसम्पदा सर्वभीतिनाशाय दीपवस्तु प्रकाशते. Host has stopped my video. श्लोक में sound. दीजिए स्क्रीन, दीजिए हमारा स्क्रीन.
चंद्रमाली सोमनाथ अंतरमहि प्रगति ज्वलंत जो अंधकारवाणी दिसे आत्मज्योत आत्मा परमात्मानो थयो ऐक्यनाथ मंथन शम्यो ऊर थयो हयु शांत हे चंद्रमौली हे सोमनाथ हे चंद्रमौली हे सोमनाथ हे सोमनाथ सोमनाथ.
Namaskar and welcome to all of you who have joined the second day of NrityaParva 2021. The NrityaParva was designed and created to bring out the best in all genres of dance. And in Baroda, the cultural capital of Gujarat, dance is not new. We have one of the oldest dance, we are one of the oldest dance places in north of India when the Bharatanatyam traveled in 1886 from Tamil Nadu to Vadodara as part of the dowry of the Maharaja's first wife, and since then till today. So we have the Baroda Gharana of Bharatanatyam, which was nurtured and nurtured by Anjali Ben Maid and all her predecessors till today. So the 40-year Anjali Memorial Committee, the MS University of Baroda and its Alumni Affairs and Donors Relations Cell, the ICCR Gujarat welcomes you all this evening on this great journey of dance. In the pandemic situation, we were not very lucky, and so many artists have departed, maybe not due to COVID, but due to various other reasons. But it's much, much more than any normal year. And here we will want to pay our tributes to all the departed souls. Om Namo Narayana. And we are always blessed by our greats and our gurus. Today, we have the blessings of none other than Dr. Sonal Mansi, who is nominated by the President of India to Rajya Sabha, the upper house of Indian Parliament in July 2018, in recognition of her lifelong dedication and service to India's arts. She is the recipient of Padma Vibhushan in 2003 from Sri APJ Abdul Kalam and Padma Bhushan in 1992 from Sri R. Venkataraman. Prime Minister of India Sri Narendra Modi has nominated her as the Navaratna for Swachh Bharat Mission. Her unique contribution has been her lifelong work using her knowledge to address socio-cultural issues through the chosen medium of dance. As a soloist, teacher, choreographer, and motivational speaker. As the founder president of Sri Kamakhya Kalapeeth, Center for Indian Classical Dances, established in 1977 in Delhi, she has trained several thousand talented students who are carrying the message of the Indian culture globally. Dr. Sonal Mansingh teaches the art as holistic concept combining music, yoga, Sanskrit, and cultural traditions of India. Thank you, Sonalven, for being and blessing us.
Namaskar. I'm here to give my best wishes, Shubhkamnaएं to NrityaParva 2021, a festival of 3 days of dance, music, and scholarly dispositions. Also, to honor 4 departed souls whose contribution to performing arts of India has been great. I congratulate the students and colleagues of late Srimati Anjani Ben Hora, Anjani Ben Med after marriage. I had the wonderful occasion of meeting her and seeing her perform many times in Bombay and in Baroda, Ahmedabad in my early years. She was one of the, shall I say, not only senior but favorite students of the great Srimati Rukmini Devi Arundale, who founded the internationally known Kalakshetra. And Anjani Ben had the privilege to learn from her directly and to learn from other great masters who were there and to interact with Rukmini Devi ji, to travel with her. And then when she came back to Baroda, she continued the legacy and established her own school. I have the privilege of knowing Srimati Dr. Parul Shah, Professor Parul Shah, also Anjani Ben's favored student, disciple, I would say. And it's a wonderful thing to remember one's guru and to pay honor and respect to the Guru Parampara, to our entire tradition of Guru Shishya Parampara. I wish all the best to all the artists, and I hope that this continues. I'm sure it will continue for years to come. I offer my respectful pranams to the memory of Anjani Ben and my best wishes once again. God bless.
Thank you so much, Sonalven, for your such beautiful best wishes. Today is the second day of Nritya Parva. Yesterday, we had Dr. Sachidanand Joshi ji, Leela Venkataraman ji, Molly Kaushal, Rama Vaidyanathan, Parvati Datta, Anuradha Jonagadalla, and so many young other dancers who gave their tribute to the great departed souls, Padma Vibhushan, Dr. Kapila Vasyanji, and Professor Philip Sarali. Today, we will share similar views, ideas, works of dear Ashtad Dabu. Ashtad has close connection to Baroda since almost 1975, that he and Asha Kurlawala started doing the Indian modern contemporary dance, and they came often to Baroda to the Faculty of Performing Arts, then Music College, and share their dance, their art with all of us. So we would like to introduce formally Ashtad to you.
Ashtad Devu, born in Gujarat was a distinguished Indian contemporary dancer and choreographer. He was an artist and a pioneer of modern dance and Indian contemporary dance in India. He had performed at both national and international levels. He learnt Kathak from Guru Prahlad Das at a young age and later Kathakali from Guru E.K. Panikar. He also learnt Martha Graham and horse limo techniques in London and New York respectively. He travelled across the world observing different dance vocabularies. He described his style as contemporary in vocabulary and traditional in restraints. Throughout his long and illustrious career, he has worked with various prominent performers such as Alison Baker, Chase, Pink Floyd, as well as Pina Bausch, to name a few. Among his most notable collaborations have been at Gilo University's Model Secondary School from the Deaf in Washington, D.C., where he was a choreographer, artist in residence, and curator. The dancer had forayed into art disciplines like film, choreographing for Indian directors like Mani Ratnam, Vishal Bharadwaj, and legendary painter M.F. Hussain. He also worked with theatre directors including Hyung Taek Lim of Seoul, Korea, and Sunil Shanbag of India. He had held performances for a host of notables from royal families in Japan, Thailand, and Sweden, and several Indian presidents. He has been awarded the prestigious Sangeet Natak Academy Award in 1996 and Padma Shri in 2007 by the Government of India, among many other. His most recent collaborative work was with Hema Rajgopalan of Abhinaya Dance Company of Chicago. Astad's Baroda connection goes back almost 5 decades with Heritage Trust, Department of Dance, and Anjali Memorial Committee, to name a few.
I remember another dancer saying, Asta, you keep complaining that, it's so difficult. And we do 30 performances in a year. You do one performance and you get national write-up. So I said, look, it's not that they are not bringing, but it's in their own classical technique they are performing. So I said, what you're also doing, I appreciate, but I don't have any control of the media. And I must say, as I mentioned, that the media really was very, very supportive in my earlier years. So people would say, हमने आपको कभी देखा नहीं है, और आपके बारे में पढ़ा तो जरूर है. So that way.
See, as my practice today and for the last years, basically primarily I've been, as I said, a solo dancer. And even when I have got these traditional performing arts involved in my choreography and working with them, using their tradition, but at the same time trying to imbibe my sort of minimal movements, or even my, like with both the thangta and with the pongchalam, they have a lot of agility and flexibility, so taking that also as a focal point, or even like in the pongchalam, they have a lot of bolchalam, so I sort of, again in my Rhythm Divine 1, I took the bolchalam and made these two like as you have a Sabal Jawab in Kathak. So I had both these practitioners, but they took it on from there. And while they took it on, they also performed, So that way, so when I'm working on my own, trying to see, okay, now I have to choreograph, now let me see how will I go about doing it. Also the fact that when I really started with the thangta, I was still, it's not that I'm not agile, but I really had that kind of a a very physical energy, and which can be brought on to the choreography even today. It's not that I've slowed down, but it's just that you also have to listen to your body. And when you're working on a particular subject, so I also feel that, okay, these people will be able to enhance this movement 10 times than what I would do. So that would make a marked difference. So take a backstage. The working together is always as a whole. It's not me. You know, I'm just a catalyst. That is my work, which I'm bringing. And I do not, like, yes, there is many a times there is a marked difference when I'm dancing on stage. Now, I'm not trying to outdo them, but at the same time, I can't really water down my movements. So there is a sort of an observation from people who says, like, you know, when we only want to look at you. But I said, that's not it. I mean, you have to look at the link of the other artists who are working with me. Like I've also worked with Dadi Padanji, the puppet master, you know, way back in the 80s. And then First, I started off just doing a two-hander. We did a piece called Friends, just him and me. And I again wanted to see how he felt and how I felt, because in that particular piece I did not use the puppet, but in Thanatomorphia, The Many Faces of Death, which is again comes from Lord Yama, where I'm showing death as a dancer, death as a liberator, death as celebration. So these are little sort of episodes we did, and the puppets were of different sizes, and sort of we worked on that collaboration. So even today, like I said, I really, 3 to 4 times a week, I really make sure that I am moving with my body, exercising, and as you see also, like I've become very minimal and very controlled. So again, I have to keep my sort of knee joints moving, I have to see. And for the last couple of years today, you see my back has become very strong. You know, so I try to see how much I can keep in that position. So it's every day, certain days I may cheat and say, I don't want to do it, I'm tired or whatever. You know, but yeah, I don't take my body for granted. You know, like somebody, like one of my street kids, I said, sir, you know, आपको तो practice करना की ज़रूरत नहीं है, नहीं? I said, practice करना बहुत ज़रूरी है. You know, you don't be under that impression that once you have learned a choreography, that unless you do not practice and keep on moving, you know, like also like sometimes when, unfortunately in India we are not fortunate that when we create a work, unlike the West or even in Asia, that work has a sort of a tour ready. There are a couple of performances, you know, even in that same city. So when you perform that same work consistently, there is a change. You figure out like, okay, this was something which did not work for me, or it didn't work with them. Let's work on that.
Let's just stop. As we have some minor connection issues, also on the large stage and also on the small screen. Ashtad was talking about himself, his work, just 2 years before. In 2019 NrityaParva, we had 15 artists across classical and contemporary dance disciplines. Critics, all of them talked about their creative processes, which is so very important to learn. We had done this with the support of Forum on Contemporary Thought, and it was a delight to listen, to understand, and to grasp each and every artist. Astad came and he was a great hit with everyone because not only of his dance, but for what he speaks about, what he has worked on. And now we shall present another artist who has most recently worked with Asta Dabu in Chicago. I met Hema in 1984 for the first time in Chicago, and actually she insisted that why don't I decide to stay in USA? Why should I go back to India? And then I at that point also said, Mera Bharat Mahan. And so I'm here. I don't know if I did the right or wrong, but I'm comfortable. So here is Hema Rajgopalan, is the founder, artistic director of Natya Dance Theatre, founded in 1975, specializing in Bharatanatyam, dance theatre of India. She is a dancer, teacher, and choreographer of international repute, committed to preserving and developing the art in new directions for diverse audiences. Her gurus are amongst the foremost figure in Bharatanatyam, K.N. Dandayuthapani Pillai and Kalanidhi Narayan Mami. Hema has performed as a soloist at prestigious venues worldwide, receiving critical acclaim. Noteworthy among them being the Edinburgh Festival in UK, Avignon Festival France, Ravinia Festival Illinois, the Kennedy Center and in India in the most major venues, the Music Academy, Krishna Gana Sabha, Bharat Kalachar, amongst others. Among the many noteworthy awards Hema has received in the USA, the Emmy, NEA Choreography Award 7 times, and in India, the Vishwa Kala Bharati, a national award for artistic excellence. So here is Hema talking about her dance, her and Ashta's work. Please.
He's no more, and the world is celebrating his great artistry, the phenomenal artist that he was, the concepts, and the great productions that he put out and presented to the world at large. Yes, he was a wonderful artist, and I really immensely enjoyed collaborating with him. I first met him in 2015 when we started collaborating. I had known him earlier, but in 2015 is when our friendship began. And I think since 2015, he became more a friend than a collaborator. Astad is such a warm-hearted human being, not thinking about any kind of hierarchy with anybody. It was always about people, how he can help, how he can share his love and affection and warmth and generosity, if I may say so. And my dancers that he worked with truly felt the same, not just me. And over the last 2 years, we became very close since we interacted, and he was here many times in Chicago, and we worked on a project together and we performed. It was a journey where I would say that, the warmth and friendship that he brought not only to the performance, but to our family in general, I would say, was just immense. He was so kind-hearted and concerned when my father was ill. Last year, in fact, he would call every day on a daily basis to give me that warmth and support and that moral support that I really needed. I really truly miss him more as a friend, than as an artist. Yes, that's a void, I agree. But, finding a human being of such warmth is not very easy. And I live so far away, and I didn't know him that much earlier. But he would call every so often and say, how are you coping with COVID? Are you okay? Even a few weeks before he passed, he reassured me. He said, he was going to come back home and then he would pick up where he left off and we would converse again. So sad that I will not be hearing his voice again. He would, share his moments of joy, his moments of achievement. If he created something, he would share it with me. It was a different feeling to talk to us. Then we would talk about other things, other artistry, other presentation, other artists. So that kind of a warmth in a friend, I'm going to miss Astad.
diko taka dingana tom ta di ta ri ta ri ta ri da na ta de ta ri ta ri dan da jono ta ri jono de mi ta diko ta dingana to ta de ta ri dhana ta de ta ri dhana jono ta ri jono de mi ta de ku ta di g na tum ta de ta ri dhana ta de ta ri dhana jono ta ri jono de mi ta diko ta ding gna to ta ri da na ta da na da na jono ta jono de mi ke ta ri dhana 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 jono de mi ke ta ri da na jo no da di g na tum da na jo no da ta di g na tum jo no ta di ko ta di g na tum ta di g na tum ta di g na tum ta di ko ta di g na tum ta ri ta jo no ta di g na tum ta na ta jo no ta di g na tum jo no ta
What an interesting collaboration. And I'm sure people who have watched the whole thing would be really delighted and satisfied. Going further, we have today another great artist, another great thinker, another great creator who will be talking about her creativity, her connection to Astar, and her own dance, Dr. Anita Ratnam, to be presented by Margi Shastri.
Dr. Anita Ratnam initially learned Bharatanatyam under Guru Adyar Lakshmanan and later went to Rukmini Devi Arundev's Kala Kshetra for a postgraduate diploma in dance. She's also trained in Kathakali and Mohiniyattam. For over 4 decades, she has shared her amazing dance and theatre skills in 15 countries around the world in about 1,500 performances. A passionate modernist, Anita creates themes from her immediate environment and weaves the traditional alongside with the modern with her eclectic view of life and art. An award-winning dancer, Anita specializes in themes that portray women from ancient myths as well as powerful women from her own life. She has been a TV producer in New York, a film actress, a writer, and an arts entrepreneur for the past 20 years. Her many initiatives on stage and internet have impacted the cultural industry in this country and created a template for many arts initiatives. She holds a PhD in women's studies and is currently engaged in retelling the epic Ramayana from a feminist perspective. She is associated with many international professional dance and art organizations. She's received many prestigious awards like Nritya Churamani, Media Achievement Award, Mahatma Gandhi Award for Cultural Harmony, Lalit Kala Ratna, Natya Ratna, Padma Shri, Fellow of the Sangeet Natak Academy, among others. She has been described as an intersectionist, as her work weaves many disciplines of dance, theatre, ritual, archaeology, and women's issues. She has founded nartaki.com, the largest portal of Indian dance online. She has created a unique style which she calls Neo Bharatnatyam. She describes herself in one of the headlines as a feminist with a sense of vigilant responsibility via the arts and humanities. Over to you, Dr. Ratnam.
Time in the mountains has a way of, just being elastic. The mists stand still. And for someone like me who lives near the ocean, this time away has been really refreshing. But to speak about Astad at this moment, it feels as if everything here in the hills pauses. It's suspended. Time is suspended. And that's exactly what Astad was able to do. Suspend time. He would just walk in, sometimes casually, sometimes in pitch darkness, and then the light would just find him. And he would be standing erect in one of those amazing angarkhas that only he could carry off. But I remember Astad, look, he's just about 10 years older than me. So I've seen him in his skin-tight unitards, influenced by the 60s and 70s psychedelic American modern dance groups of Murray Lewis. And then it was a very different style he had. And I always thought, whenever I got to see him, which was first in his astounding photographs, was how different he was on the Indian dance scene. His colleague, Uttara Kurlawala, had left to go to the United States, but Astad voyaged all over the world, even went to Vietnam during the war just to watch the war, because he was such an intrepid traveler and a voyager and an adventurer. It was as if he needed all these influences, and his body and his mind was like a blotting paper, just soaking it all in. Well, to think about him, and I have to also say that I was there in Chennai for his last public performance before the lockdown. And of course, during the pandemic, he left us. But that moment in Kalakshetra, it was serendipity, right? Because here was this voyager, restless, individual, very iconoclastic, doing his own thing, stepping onto the stage of another dreamer. I mean, Rukmini Devi was a visionary, but look, in the 1930s, she was a dreamer. And if in today's dance history, she's considered a classicist or a reformer, remember that she was a rebel in her time. So here was one rebel and another rebel. They must be smiling up there now. But that performance was one of Astad's many, many collaborations. This time it was with the Korean Inco Center. And it was called Same, Same, But Different. And it showed the commonalities of Korean and Indian culture through music and movement. It was a beautiful evening. And Astad was the only dancer. There were so many musicians, but he was the only dancer. And you know what? He held the audience. He held that vast Kalakshetra space in a thrall. And I remember he stepped onto, in one of the moments, was that iconic long angarkha designed by Ashdeen with the Parsi crane, the bird, which is a very auspicious symbol for them. It was, I think, in a midnight blue with white. And when he moved those yards and yards and yards of fabric, I just felt Astad was flying in the clouds. And little did I know that he really would. His spirit would be soaring into the clouds just before the year ended. I've watched Astad many times on the stage. I had the pleasure and the privilege of inviting him 4 times, both for the other festival and also onto the traditional Krishna Gana Sabha and Bharati Vidya Bhavan stages during the Chennai Margari classical music and dance season. Now that is a feat. But Astad had that quality. He was able to transcend all these boundaries of classical and contemporary and Indian music, classical music. He worked with such a variety of musicians as well. You know, whenever I met him, and it would always be leading up to a performance of his or a photo shoot, and he would never eat. He would not eat for about 2 or 3 days before a public appearance. He said his stomach had to be flat. I mean, that was the kind of discipline he had. I will cherish my memories of Astad Debu. I mean, he really was an individual, a loner, a dreamer, and he was a stunning contrast and a stunning statement against the overly decorated, bejeweled, coy, simpering classical dancer that he actually had a parallel journey with. He respected classical dance, but his only collaboration with classical dance was in Chicago with Hema Rajagopalan and the Natya Dance Company. I was there at rehearsal. I was there at the last technical rehearsal before the premiere, and I know how excited he was. He said, "This is my first time I'm collaborating with classical dance. I know so many dancers, all of you are divas." I mean, he called me a diva, but who are any of us next to the supreme diva, Astad? But I noticed him. He was so professional, so quiet, so disciplined. He went out there and just executed what he had to do. Later we talked and I said, "Astad, what do you think about that? I mean, do you think this could have happened?" He says, "Maybe, but this is a collaboration and I have to respect the overall artistic direction and the vision of the main person in charge. I'm a guest artist." And he never ever dropped that sense of discipline, politeness, courtesy, kindness, generosity. Through this special, I know you would be hearing so many ways in which he has given of himself. I watched him work in Madras at the Clark School for the Deaf, and how beautifully he was able to visualize beats and sounds for the hearing impaired. I can go on and on about my dear friend Astad Debu, but I have to say it's been a privilege to know him. I think he will never be forgotten. I hope dancers across generations, especially classical dancers, will take a look at some of his videos and see what it means to embody stillness. That moment when time is suspended and Astad seems to be Kala himself. We love you, Astad. We will always remember you. We miss you dearly. Maybe now your Angarkha is the clouds, the mist, the stars, the lightning, the rain. Who knows what dazzling adventures you are creating right up there.
செல்வ திருமகளே செங்கமல நாயகா தங்க கால்களில் தண்டைகள் தங்க மேனியில் மாலைகள் குலுங்க தங்க கைகளில் தாமரை விளங்க பொங்கிடும் மங்களம் புரிதனில் பொழியும் செல்வத் திருமகளே செல்வத்திருமகளே செங்கமல நாயகி
शुद्धलक्ष्म्यै बुद्धिलक्ष्म्यै महालक्ष्म्यै नमो नमः
What an intense friendship, what love, and what art. Anita, thank you so much for giving your special love showing for Astad and your beautiful dance. Now we have Dr. Ami Pandya welcoming one of the great supporters of Anjali Memorial Committee, Dr. Arshia Sethi.
Namaskar. I'm really happy to introduce you to Dr. Arshia Sethi, an independent scholar. Dr. Arshia Sethi writes and speaks on art and cultural issues globally. A renowned art consultant, building tangible and intangible cultural equities, including programming at India Habitat Center. She was earlier a dance critic for the Times of India. For 3 decades, she presented Doordarshan's archival national program of dance and music and was subsequently invited by PSBT to be advisor for dance for DD Bharti. Her doctoral research has been on the dances of the Vaishnava monasteries, Satras. She is a twice Fulbright Fellow with doing postdoctoral at the University of Minnesota. Her first Fulbright was as an art fellow at Lincoln Center, New York. Dr. Arshia Shetty, after establishing several tangible and intangible cultural equities, writes and speaks on cultural issues at the intersection of politics and society. In 2003, she established CREE Foundation, which promotes artivism, art directed at activism. Dr. Arshia Shetty.
Thank you so much, Dr. Pandya. Thank you very much, Dr. Shah. It's been a pleasure to come back and be part of the Anjali Memorial Committee's annual festival called NrityaParva. I offer my salutations at this moment to Anjali Ben, whose most remarkable photograph painting that you see behind Parulji today is something that I always stop and keep looking at, and you have to pull me away from that painting. It's truly one of the most marvelous ones. Thank you for having me here today to speak on Astad Debu. There are so many memories that come rushing back to me about Astad. So my fear was that I would exceed the few minutes that were given to me, and I tried to be as organized as possible. And so I visited my last interview of Astad, which was in 2018, done at the Natya Ballet Center as part of their biennial festival. And while I largely stick to that, there is much more that I would like to add. In the very first place, I want to begin by telling you that the first time I met Astad really showed Astad for what he was. I was at that time in the last trimester of my first pregnancy, and I had just begun as dance critic for the Times of India. And at that time, I was asked to do some features as well. And I thought that the journey of Astad Debu has been so remarkable. This is in 1987 that I was feeling that maybe we should do an interview with him. So I spoke to Astad, and he was in Delhi. He invited me to a hotel in Connaught Place, a good hotel, but for some reason the lift wasn't working there. And with this enormous stomach of mine, I went up the stairs and I knocked on his door, leaning against the wall, breathing heavily. And then the door opened and Astad looked at me and his eyes widened in horror and said, "Oh my God, you're pregnant. You should have told me that." I said, "No, it's okay. I can manage," and all that. And then instinctively, he put his hands on my stomach. And at that very moment, the baby kicked. That was such a delightful start for our friendship, which continued till the end. Except none of us realized that the end was coming so soon. So it has caught us by surprise. In fact, the year has been terrible, 2020. The list of people that you showed at the start, Parul, really made one realize how much we have lost in this year. So it's not just a 0 year, as many people like to call it, but I think a 0 into 0 year. So anyway, let's begin. So you know that from 1960, the Astad, after being born in Navsari, goes to Calcutta first and then to Jamshedpur, as his father was part of Tata Steel. So these are not, Calcutta is, but Jamshedpur isn't really a city known for great cultural activity. It's probably one of the neatest, cleanest cities in India because of the presence of the Tata brand. It's here that he learned for 10 years Kathak. And I've always felt that all of Astad's trainings honestly reflect in his performance. So from 1969 to about 1977, for 8 years, he was overseas most of the time, as he himself liked to say, on all 5 continents, as he tried to discover for himself a dance language. It was in one of these years while he used to go abroad and then come back for a brief while, that the other day while researching something else, I came across a story told to me by Uttara Kurlawala. And I know that Uttara is sort of scheduled to speak on this program, but since I've asked her permission in advance, I thought I would just share this story. So both Uttara and Astad were forging a very difficult path for themselves, pioneers often have to do that. And on one of her scholarships to India to understand the Indian dance language, Uttara had worked with Mohan Rao Kalyanpurkarji of Kathak, and she was working on a new choreography called Usha, based on Usha Sukta. And you see pictures of her which are very defining. She's wearing a very draped kind of a sari, and her leg rises up, and so the drapes show very beautifully. And she told me that it was Astad who had tied that sari on her. So the angarkha, which Anita just talked about, was just one of the many ways that he would drape huge amounts of cloth. He was quite an expert at it, as Uttara's story would let us know. It was only 1 year after returning from Prithvi Theatre. I mean, it took as much as 1 year after returning from overseas that he got a chance to perform in Prithvi Theatre in 1978, which was his first formal performance. Now, I mentioned that the pathway for Astad could not have been easy, and it wasn't if you looked at the way the gurus of the established Indian classical dance forms reacted to his presence and his art. Many of them came and told, hey, he used to describe it himself that I was persona non grata. And it was only when I got the Sangeet Natak Academy Award in 1996 that he was reluctantly sort of treated as an artist. He was very fond of telling another story that once Secretary Culture, I think it was Secretary Culture, told him, Astad, aapko to marne ke baad hi award milega. Pioneers have to suffer. But he said, mercifully, I got the award before. And he debated whether he should get in touch with the secretary to let him know, okay, well, his prediction hasn't come entirely true. Now, I believe that Astad carried forward his Indian trainings very well. Trainings, you may ask me? Yes. So after the first decade of Kathak in Jamshedpur, he actually, in 1972, on one of these brief visits back to India, was advised by Dr. Sunil Kothari, who is also somebody we are offering salutations to in this series this year. Dr. Sunil Kothari had suggested to him that maybe he would like to explore Kathakali training. And he was accepted by E. Krishna Panikar, and in the first 3 months was trained only in Purpad. But over the next 6 years, he continued working with the same guru and learned enough to put up a performance in the Guruvayur temple as an offering, and once, as he called it, my full chutti performance in Mumbai. He differed very strongly with the trend of video watching as a excuse for training. Even in the contemporary technique, he who had been trained by so many Jose Limon, Martha Graham, Alison Becker of Pilobulus, Merce Cunningham, Murray Lewis, and even Pina Bausch, always felt that you need to get that archive of movement possibilities into your body, and only then can you allow theatricality to become such a defining feature in your dance. I have always called him the master of rasa, and it was rasa revealed at an ati vilambit pace. So maybe the ati vilambit aspect came from his Kathak training. His release of bhava was so controlled, and he held on to the sthai bhav completely. And with the sarvang abhinay or with upang abhinay, with just a little momentarily but fast, sharp change, he would release the energy slowly. That is a point that Anita also talked about when she said that he became Kala. His training, his physical training to gain, the stamina and control was very similar to his treatment of Abhinay. It was always very slow, very Tai Chi-like. Of course, he had the regular routine of yoga, swimming, walking, as he said, but he did not go to gyms. The other thing about Asta that I found fascinating was his hairscapes. I'm sure it did not miss anyone. that he always had a fancy hair design. Now, when he would return to India, he would go and meet his hairdresser, who, by the way, was also a tarot reader and a spiritualist and future. She would foretell the future. And she would always ask, "What is your theme?" And then cut his hair accordingly. Now, I remember one of the first times I noticed it, he had a knots and crosses kind of a thing. And I was so dying to have a little pen, that felt pen kind of a thing, to be able to play knots and crosses on the way he had done his hairscape. Now, after 10 years of solos in Europe, America, and Japan, which also included that milestone performance that many of you might remember at the Aspas Kardin, where he choreographed for the Russian ballerina Maya Plissetskaya. And he looked so handsome wearing the sherwani and the gaji silk shawl. He looked really great when he went up to take the bow. Now, he said to me in this interview that it was actually the Zee TV Awards, where funding was very generous, that he started exploring the Thangta dancers. Across Astad's career, you see him interacting with all sorts of artists. And I'm not surprised that his first interaction was the only one, first and only interaction with an Indian classical dancer happened with Hemaji. Well, anyway, this was the Zee TV Awards. They wanted something stunning. As he said, it was in the time before the Shamaks and the Terences became hot property, that he put together 10 Thangta dancers with 10 of his modernistic jazz type of dancers, and created something called the 5-Star Fantasy, which had 10 dancers of the Manipuri tradition, 10 dancers of this jazz tradition, and he became the spirit as these two extremes, of performance techniques sort of clashed, drew apart and came together, and he created this wonderful piece. So this was the start. Subsequently, he went on to work with as many, with 4 dancers, and traveled extensively because funding always was a problem. And he tells a very interesting story of funding when he tries to compare that, he had been working with the deaf children, also a point that had already been brought up. He worked with 2 groups of deaf dancers. One was a Calcutta-based theater group of hearing impaired dancers. The name of the group will come back to me. For the moment, let me just tell you that how to teach them was his biggest concern. And so, remember the Ati Vilambit aspect? He taught them, don't go beyond 8. But the counting was very low. So they had to. He wouldn't accept any limitations. He told them no mistakes. Despite the fact that this is difficult, no mistakes. I recall that he also took the opportunity of going on the Frankfurt Book Fair, where India was the country, to produce the first of his Rhythm Divine series. It became, as you can figure out, a set of performances. This was with the Thangta dancers. Deaf actors that I told you, it was the Action Players of Calcutta. Subsequently, he worked with a group in Chennai, and I think Anita has referenced that. He created a work called Counterposition, and it was based on rasas. Now, this group was trained in Bharatanatyam earlier, so he used many of their movements and their comfort with rasas. But he complicated matters. Each rasa had a different rhythm. So the counting would keep changing, but they performed flawlessly and went on to do as many as 75 performances in a 5-year period. And this included command performances at the Deaf Olympics in Melbourne and at the Rashtrapati Bhavan, where he told me that President Kalam served with his own hands snacks to the dancers who had come. So truly, I mean, he was able to make all of us feel very proud by the way he would fearlessly engage other artists. Reference has been made to Dadi Padamji and his big puppets. Dadi works with these giant puppets. You know, at the Habitat Center in the stairs of the auditorium was the first time I saw it. I just stood there stunned. So there are many moments like this, including a passing reference that has been made to Bollywood as well. And he was full of many funny stories. For one, he told me, I don't do 1, 2, 3 jhatka. So I said, okay, so what about that Kalpana Iyer Abdullah thing? So he said, you see that Zeenat Aman Sanjay Khan movie, in that there was an item song in a desert done by that time Jhatka girl, Kalpana Iyer. And he said, yeah, that was one. But for the others, I told them very clearly that, wait for me till I do my kind of dancing. And he was very proud of Ravan. He was very proud of Omkara and Meenakshi's work. He worked a lot with poetry in many languages because, as he said, I have people who guide me. So amongst the people who guided him, one, Satyadev Dubey, with whom he had a lifelong friendship, and Satyadev Dubey guided his performance career very well. Satyadev Dubey it was who directed him to Lakdi Ka Ravan, Mukti Bodh's poem, which he performed, as many of you may remember, at Khajuraho. Because at that time, the deal was either you dance some theme from Khajuraho's temples or you dance poem from Madhya Pradesh. He chose the Madhya Pradesh route. I happened to be there as dance critic, so I remember that moment so well. He landed up on stage in his white kurta pajama, a little white topi and all that, and a car which had a red light. The car came straight onto the stage, and everybody thought that some VIP has come to do lecture bazi and inaugurate the function. He got out and did namaste, namaste to everybody. And with him were black cats. You know who those were? They were all his friends who had come to see him perform at Khajuraho, which was a huge achievement for a dancer who was not even considered kosher. Till he got the award, here he was dancing at the gut of all these, sculptural dance forms and all that. So it actually was quite funny, but his fondness for poetry could be seen in his exploration of the Rabindranath Tagore poems also, and Bulle Shah, which Suhail Hashmi put him onto. In fact, he never stopped performing for the Safdar Hashmi 1st January program. He would always perform whenever he could. And in fact, in 2019, I think it was, that he dedicated his performance to the students of JNU. So there was a bit of a political being in Astad. So that choice of Lakdi Ka Ravan was not an accidental choice. That poem really must have spoken to him. I'd like to just end off by saying that Astad worked very strongly and for a while with the Salam Balak Trust people. They were the street children people. And how he comes to it is very interesting. He said there was ever a fight for grants because the Indian government would not give grants, so freely and things. So he often had to go to corporate sponsors to get grants. So one time he went asking for a grant for the hearing impaired children with whom he used to work. And just before that, Salam Balak Trust, represented then by its board member Sanjoy Roy, had spoken to him about the possibility of doing something with the children. And the children, by the way, when he met them first time, he said, what do you know about dance? And all of them danced Bollywood. So when he goes in to ask this corporate bank, what about funding? Would you continue funding the Deaf Children project? They said, no, Astad, now our priority is not deaf children. It is street children. So he couldn't believe his, ears when he was hearing that. Abhi to main unko Bollywood dance karke dekhe aaye. They want to dance. And so rapidly he shifted his priorities. And, I must tell you that Astad, like most other artists, worked to his highest intensity, but then felt that, okay, I've done this, I've been there. How about new challenges? So he was ever ready to embrace the new challenges. So with the boys from he worked with the boys only of Salam Balak Trust for the international tour that he did, a Cervantino Festival and 9 cities in Mexico and all that. He worked only with the boys. And this brings me absolutely to the last point, which is that many people felt that Astad had quite a temper. Astad actually would not stand for shortcuts in anything. So he told me, I like the fact that it was only the boys. I could yell at them when they danced badly. So I don't know whether I should say that he did have a temper, or that he was just so driven to perfection that he was well aware of the fact that he could use his anger sometimes to dramatic effect. He worked with Drupad particularly. He was crazy about it. And Bahuddin Dagar is one of the last Drupad artists he collaborated with. And all in the end, my last line, 1996, when he got the Sangeet Natak Academy Award, it was what I call a yes moment. In 2007, when he got his Padma Shri, it was another yes moment. When he got his booking at Khajuraho, and he did thrice at Khajuraho, they were yes moments. Also, the Krishna Gana Sabha Award, yes moment. Here was a man who had, for the first part of his life, for years and years, only heard no. And now, thank God, he heard yeses. My last story, it was in 1990 or 89, he was performing at Kamani Auditorium, which many of you remember has a music pitch. While walking on the parapet of the pitch, I was still of the pit. I was dance critic. That's how I'm there to witness this thing. He missed his foot. He missed his step, and he fell down the dance pit. And there was this gasp, absolutely, because either it was like foolhardy, risk-taking choreography, or really he could have got hurt. And suddenly we see one hand emerging, and Astad, in a very dramatic manner, appeared on stage. Later I went back. I said, Astad, you fell? He said, yes. How I hope that Astad disappearing right now is a disappearing into the music pit, that he would come out again and complete those projects that he had so excitedly told me about, but which he has not been able to. So with my love for Astad, and thank you, Parul, for allowing me this chance to share my thoughts about Astad, I will stop now. Thank you.
Thank you, Arshia, so much for sharing these great memories. And as all of you can see, all the dancers, all the critics, everyone has loved Ashtad. What a wonderful human being. And Arshia is very right. He would not stand for any nonsense ever. Baroda is very proud, as our Chancellor Madam said yesterday, that it was on the ramparts of the Champanet fort that he danced with his stunning blue leotard, stunning, and the red cloth flying. And then the Gundecha brothers accompanying him. It was just an out of the way memory, which is still with all of us who were there that evening. Also, Astad has been coming to Baroda to work with the deaf and dumb children of the Arpan, which is run by Nisha Grover even today. So Astad had a lot of connection, and I think we met last year in 2019. Arsha, you were also there. Thank you so much, Arsha. And now we go to another contemporary creative dancer who was with Ashtad, and Uttara Asha Kurlawala. Asha was born in Hyderabad in 1945, initially trained under Yoga Sundar Shri, Yogacharya Shri B.K.S. Iyengar, and in Bharatanatyam under Kadirvelu Pillai and Thankamani Nagarajan. She moved to United States and graduated in theatre studies with dance as a major component at Smithsonian College in Massachusetts. She took her master's degree followed by a PhD in choreography and performance at New York University. Securing merit scholarship, she acquired professional training in dance at the Jacob's Pillow Dance Festival, the American Dance Festival, the Juilliard School, the Martha Graham School of Contemporary Dance, the Dance Theatre of Harlem, and the Cunningham Studio. During her career in dance spanning more than 4 decades, Asha has won wide critical acclaim. As a dancer and choreographer, she has presented her work at prestigious dance festivals all over the world and has also danced in the several New York-based choreographers. She is known for her creative and experimental works based on yoga, Bharatanatyam, and modern dance. She is also well known for her teachings and has worked as a professor of dance at universities in the United States and Europe. Among her prominent students are Asta Davu and Shaimak Tawar. Kurlawala has received several awards for her work. These include so many. And the final one is that Sangeet Natak Akademi Award for her contribution to the creative and experimental dance. Asha and me worked together in 1992 for her production for the Wisconsin Annual South Asian Dance Conference with Philip, Asha, me, Purnima Shah. It was a wonderful collaborative project, and Asha just wrote to me saying that she was not knowing that Philip has passed away, and she says, Parul, we are losing our mentors. Yes, Asha, please share your work.
Astad Debu, born in Navsari on Agyari Street, a very sacred site for Zarathustrians. Astad I met for the first time in 1967 when he was auditioning for my performance of the Joyous Cosmology in the Vallabhbhai Patel Stadium. There was this dancer amongst the group of people who were auditioning who was spinning and spinning and spinning with total abandon, total absorption and lack of self-consciousness. That was Astad, dancing his way into my heart as he danced his way into many people's hearts later on. And the spinning became a motive in his dancing, which started out by being Dionysic, but eventually became very meditative and subtle. Two aspects of his personality just shine out for me. One was his love of dance, and the other was his love of people. He would always say to me, you know, it doesn't matter what critics say. It doesn't matter whether they say good things or bad things. It's the love of dance that counts, and just keep dancing and be lucky to be so. Coming from him, this is important advice, because for him it was not easy. He was a solo male dancer choreographer doing contemporary work. And in spite of all that, he persisted, and eventually he won 2 wonderful awards, the Sangeet Natak Academy Award and also the Padma Shri in 2007 for his contributions to Indian cultural life. He had wings on his heels as a dancer, but just his creativity. In '69 and Sense of Adventure, he boarded a cargo boat and he made his way hitchhiking through Europe to reach New York in 1974. That's where I met him. And he never stopped moving. He kept on dancing in exotic sites like the Great Wall of China, the snowy Alps, in metropolitan cities like New York in the Lincoln Center. And he had a brilliant way of actually thinking on his feet. And he worked with a variety of different people in different situations. As a traveler, he said to Astad, to Ketu Katriak, In October of 2005, he said, and I quote, "I haven't spent a year in any country for the last 40 years. It's now a way of living. Nothing is really grounding me to excite me. I need change, not change in my work. My work is with me all the time. I just need that change of environment. I need the change of food, of music, of people. That is a sort of stimulation for me." Some people see Ustad like a lonely warrior riding off into endless sunsets. But I disagree. Yes, the act of performing demands solitude because that is the only way to pull out of oneself creativity that's needed for performances and choreography. But I'd like to point out that wherever he went, Ustad either had friends or he made friends. And as a friend himself, he was a rock of support, of sympathy, creative suggestions, and generosity of spirit. As he kept on dancing, Ustad's dances, always imaginative, became more and more finely structured, more nuanced, very elegant. His presence grew very densely focused. His dances became more evocative rather than narrational. He performed asking deep questions like Thanatomorphia. Is death liberation or is it a celebration? He danced spoofs as he did in the East-West Dance Encounter in '84. His later works collaborating with the Manipuri Pung dancers and the Thangta dancers over a period of 16 years involved deep collaboration at an equal level. He collaborated with postmodern choreographer Rani Nair of Sweden in August 2017, and then with the celebrated dancer choreographer Himaraja Gopalan, who had just gotten the MacArthur Award in 2019. So, Ustad believed not just in giving back, but in paying forward. He he actually gave to deaf students and taught them choreographies that he toured, and similarly to the street children of Mira Nair Salam Balak Trust. All of them he raised funds for their tours. And despite these collaborative works, he stayed true to his own personal style. And he had elements of Kathakali, Bhutto, modern dance, and other contemporary forms. His choreography, his costumes, specially designed for his movement and personality, his cornrow hairstyle, his use of Dadi Patamji's masks, they all spoke to his minute attention to detail and to the ability to visualize stunning effects. He understood the power and emotive qualities of color and of scale. He paid close attention to international music scene and the local music scene, dancing with top performers and musicians. So he was dancer, choreographer, philanthropist, and friend to many. Ustad Debu will be missed.
Wonderful to see Asha in sari. I think I saw the same. We worked together in 1992 for the conference that I talked about. We come to our own Dr. Mallika Sarabhai, and I request Margi to present Mallika. Unfortunately, Mallika is not able to join us this evening because some kind of time conflicts, but she has sent her work. It's a beautiful small piece of work where she talks of something which is so important for all of us in today's life. Please see and think about it. All these productions of contemporary dance makes people think, wonder, and contemplate on what is life. Margi.
Thank you. It gives me immense pleasure to introduce Dr. Mallika Sarabhai, who is known to most people present as a Kuchipudi and Bharatanatyam dancer. But she prefers to be introduced as a communicator who uses the various languages of dance, choreography, publishing, activism, writing, and acting as her medium. She's a woman of many dimensions and talents, and there are many things that concern her, which she has spoken, written, and communicated over the years. Daughter of the famous dancer Mrinali Sarabhai and the well-known space scientist Vikram Sarabhai, she's currently using her gene pool in a project called Rocket Boys, in which she brings alive both her parents' work. She has acted in Hindi and Gujarati films and has an MBA and PhD from IIM Ahmedabad. She has choreographed and scripted several performances that use dance as a tool for social change, like Shakti, Sita's Daughters, Ganga, Surya, Ansuni. She's traveled abroad with her performances, and her international debut began long ago as Draupadi in Peter Brook's Mahabharat, both in French and English. There are many things that move her, and she brings with her hope, humor, infecting many people with her enthusiasm to try and change the world a little bit at a time. Mallika and her work. Thank you.
Inherit an earth whose rainforest lungs breathe a tale of waste. Should we dance? Or break into gnashing of teeth at the news of our inheritance? Children of the meek should inherit an earth where the grass goes nostalgic at the mere mention of green, and the sky looks out of its depth when reminded of blue. Should we dance? Or break into gnashing of teeth at the news of our inheritance? the children of the meek should inherit such an earth, then we ask of the future one question. Should we dance or break into gnashing of teeth at the news of our inheritance?
Ah, we are all, I think, stunned and shocked. And tonight's last presentation, who else can that be but Astad Dabu? Astad was in Baroda 2019. We heard him talking in the beginning of this evening's program, and now we will see what he danced that evening. It's Ashtag. This is the kind of na bhuto na bhavishyati. How do we get another Ashtag or any of these people? Yesterday's Kapila Vachayanji, Philip Zarili, Asad Dabu. These are unique people which we will never find again. Maybe different, but not the same. It is a humble try of Anjali Memorial Committee, the Alumni Affairs and Donors Relation Cell of the Maharaja Sayajirao University, the ICCR Gujarat, to bring to all of you a small, very small glimpse of these great personalities. Through their own words, through their own actions, through the contemporaries, to the whole world of dance, we have tried our humble way to present to you, to this country, to Baroda, to the world, our own dear people. Tomorrow, we will have our own Sunil Kothari. I request all of you, if you don't see it now, see it the time that is comfortable to you on the Facebook pages of these three domains. But do see, do appreciate, do love, do care for dance. Thank you. Good night. Have a good night. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Parul. See you tomorrow.
See you tomorrow.